Hi, in the next few lectures, we're going to be looking at the drum rack. So the drum rack is basically a sampler that can handle multiple different samples. So if we drag over the drum rack, you'll see we get these little pads, and these allow us to drag in samples. And these also link up to our MIDI controller. You can scroll down here on the left, and we have up to 128 little pads where we can drag samples or even drag multiple samples to these pads. This is great if you want to add, say, MIDI effects or audio effects onto the separate pads as well. It's a really powerful tool, a really powerful instrument in Ableton Live 10. And in the next few lectures, we're going to be going through in detail how you can use the drum rack. So if you have a MIDI controller plugged in, if you play any note on the MIDI controller, you will see this note light up in the drum rack over here and also in this meter. At the moment, we don't have a sample, so there's not going to be any audio outputs, which is over here. But it's quite simple. All you have to do is just find a sample, either use one from Ableton Live or use your own audio samples. And I'm just going to expand this and just search in the sample here for kick. This one's fine, and just drag this in to say C1 here. And now I can preview this with the play button, or I can mute it, or I can solo it. If you find a MIDI keyboard, you'll notice that that's not the right note. That's an octave too high. So if we just drop this by an octave, or 2 octaves actually, there we go. And here we'll open up a simpler instrument where the sample is. So you can go through and edit some stuff in the simpler, and here the audio will output. And it's in our channel strip here. Okay, so at the moment, it's only this one note, so we can just go through and quickly build a drum rack. So I just typed in snare. So let's find a snare. This one will do. So I'm just going to drag this into D here. And now we can play with my MIDI keyboard. The kick and the snare, and the trigger separately. Okay, we can do the same with the hi-hats, percussion, whatever you want. You can even add synthesizers if you wish. It doesn't just have to be samples. But I do recommend starting off with samples, and you'll notice it'll open a simpler for each one of these, so you can change where the sample starts. It doesn't have to be exactly at the start. And just for an overview, I'll quickly show you how you can add effects into the drum rack. So let's just find, say, audio effects. I'll also show you how you can add these as a send and return. But for now, let's just add a reverb. So let's find reverb and just drag it onto the snare. And now when we play the kick, it won't play any reverb. And when we play the snare, it will have reverb. Another great tip is actually using a MIDI effect. So this will go on before it reaches the simpler. Because in the chain, you'll notice it will go to the simpler, and then it will go to the audio effects. With the MIDI effects, it will actually go before the simpler. So I'm just going to go to a sample and type in hi-hat. Let's just find a hi-hat. You can use part of this here. I'm going to put this on F sharp. I'm just going to find a hi-hat sample here. Zoom in. Okay, now I'm going to play F sharp. We'll play this hi-hat. What we can do, which is quite interesting for a lot of hip hop and trap music, is to have an arpeggiator on the hi-hats. You'll notice the sound, I'm sure. So let's go on to MIDI effects and have our arpeggiator, drag this onto the hi-hat, and let's try, say, 16ths. And now when I play this F sharp, this hi-hat, it will play it with a. And now when I play this F sharp, it will play it with an arpeggiator. Not only that, we can also drag this onto other notes as well. So I'm going to hold down Alt and copy this over. And on this second one, I'm going to change this value. Let's try this let's try the first one as an eighth and the second one as a 16th. And I'm going to drag this over again by holding down Alt to A sharp. This is where I like to have drums because I'm used to playing fingerstyle drums on other DAWs. So the kick's normally a C, the snare's normally a D, the hi-hats are normally F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp, but you can have the drums wherever you want. It doesn't really matter. And the last one, I'm going to change this to 1/24. And now we get this rolling hi-hat style. Let's just turn the metronome on. I'm going to change this tempo to 140 BPM. Because of course this is linked to the clock of our tempo, so me just guessing the tempo isn't always going to be correct. So we can get that rolling hi-hat feel. I was just playing that on my MIDI keyboard, just finger drums. So we get this 1/8, 16th, and 24th. We can use different patterns. We don't even have to sync it if we don't want to. We can have it free. If you want to get that really crazy sound, you will get a lot of hi-hats and even snares in hip-hop and trap music. But that's just one quick tip you can do. I just thought I'd give you a quick overview of the drum rack. So basically, you can just drag in your samples. You can change the samples in the simpler. You can add on audio effects, for example, in the snare. This has a reverb. You can also add on MIDI effects beforehand. So you can really get some interesting sounds. And the next few lectures, we're going to dive a lot deeper and I'm going to show you a lot more about the drum rack. So thank you for watching this lecture and I'll see you in the next one where we're going to continue looking at the drum rack in Ableton Live 10.